Well, welcome back to the Kimchi family. We have been idle for a long time and we're doing something a little different. We don't have a guest, but granted, we have two of us. So, in this episode, in this, talk, we're going to just kind of go over what we've kind of reflect, I guess, Marshall. We'll go back and see where we've gone from John Yim, our first guest, to being on the New York Times and being mentioned on the New York Times. I think that's so big, and there's a lot of things that happen in between, but a lot of growth potential, I would say. And so, we appreciate all the support in terms of listenership, subscriptions, all of that onto our YouTube channel and whatnot. I plan to try and I know I've been saying to Marshall so many times, plan to try and get an audio version only to get on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, things like that. So bear with me, apologize for that. But Marshall, I just want to ask you how you doing today, and also just kind of reflecting back. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this whole Kimchi family and where we've come?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Daniel. I just came from 2 hours of just high school basketball workout. For people who are following, I haven't been a guest yet, but that's my passion and my love and coaching and working with young people. So I've kind of settled in here a little bit. But no, just reflecting on just everything you talked about. Just first of all, John, what an amazing, first guest he was, and how openly he shared about his journey to, like, is it 2 Sundays now, right? It's past. For me personally, I'm a father of two. I got a 10-year-old son, an 8-year-old daughter, and, lived in New York City for a stretch. So that, that opening of a Sunday Times, the actual hard copy of it is like, it's a visceral memory. It's one of my most fond memories of living in the city, but then many, many years later, to be able to do that and share with my children.
Mm.
And it was fun because we finally found it, in the very back section, and we get to, hey, there's Uncle John, and my daughter's like, who's Uncle John? Like everybody's an uncle. Hey, there's Uncle Eugene,
Yeah.
MBA. Hey, that's Uncle Hyunjung. You haven't met him yet, but you will.
Yeah.
And then it gets to my part, and my name is cut off like Mar dash Shawl. So like for them, that was like that was it. Like nothing could beat that. Like, hey, look, they split your name in half, Dad.
For sure.
But in that moment, to share with them and know that, like, that's just normal. It's not a big deal to them, and it's almost even comical, right? To even see their dad's name mentioned, or their community that they're growing up in mentioned, and then to see all these Korean faces on that top to bottom full
Mm-hmm.
page coverage. I'm glad that I try to sneak your name in there, but I know there were so many names, but
Yeah.
I think just Kimchi Family getting on there is pretty significant, 7 episodes in. But I think it speaks to what we've done in terms of telling, John's story, telling Steve's story, going off to Dan, and talking about his time with Nike. And so to go all that, it excites me for what we're doing next, where we're going to venture out. I think a big part of this was so that I think a lot of us, if we find strength in our own Korean identity, the goal isn't to limit it to Koreans, but
For
to
sure.
spend this first chapter really finding the handful that are out there. And there's actually, you and I have done a lot of digging. There's a lot more Korean American and Korean basketball story to tell,
Yep.
but we want to venture out beyond that, and tell the Asian American story, or tell the immigrant story, or tell, the stories of, people who just, if you've gotten out of your comfort zone, if you grew up where, your ethnic food was something that people made fun of, but now it's widely accepted. I think
Mm.
that's a universal experience that any culture, any person, in a foreign space, can relate to. So that's what I think ultimately, I think that's where I would love to take it, and know that, we're not meant to just stay in this bubble, whether of our comfort zone. I think that particular line is something that I've had to live out being in this basketball space for almost, 15, 20 years now.
Yeah.
And so but only when we do that can we, truly find ourselves, and meet our full potential, but also find ways to contribute, to all the things that we bring our gift to.
Mm. Yeah. And I mean, you talk about sharing that moment with your kids, right? With the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of reminds me of, just the spirit of why we started Kimchi Family
Mm-hmm.
in the first place. And ultimately, it is to share stories. But that is the result. We're sharing stories resulting in empowering the youth, empowering the people around us, especially like you said, just being comfortable with your Korean identity and being proud of that and leveraging that where we couldn't before, specifically in the sports space, but that can be seen in any other industry. And so just making the Korean American community a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter. That's really the mission of Kimchi Family. And I think, over the past, you said seven, do we have 7 speakers?
Yeah, this number 8, man. Wow.
I mean, over the, 7 speakers, a range of different talents, experiences, there's just so many people out there that are doing amazing things. And, of course, we want to highlight those people. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know, Marshall, are there some common themes that you've got out of it over the 7 speakers? Or is there anything you want to touch on, just kind of reflecting back? I think we started the first episode, I believe, was it October of 2020?
Yeah, something
Might have
like
been.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, part of why we haven't been as prolific, in knocking these out is because you've been busy getting ready for Kimchi Express, right? This
Yeah.
the basketball tournament team. And again, that was our first connection, right? I didn't know you from anybody. You and your buddies came on the road trip here and visited our facilities, and just got to hear my story a little bit. But I was just so encouraged by the fact that, that's something that, again, it's a recurring theme, that you had the gumption to go and do something, right? And the comfort zone, leaving it, you might have not known how hard it was going to be to get to this point, but you just did it anyways.
Yeah.
There's a Teach for America poster hanging back here. It's actually, if you take this cover off of a poster of Kevin Carroll, one of my mentors. There's my mug in there. Do you want to see it? Have you seen it?
No.
Have you? It's a little embarrassing. I don't know why I'm doing this, but here we go. So there it goes. This is my, oh well. This was young Marshall.
Oh, this is a Teach for America poster.
Yeah. I was literally the Teach for America poster child. My second year teaching. And it says, "You want to change things." That was their tagline. My younger sister was actually a college student at University of Washington, and one of her campus jobs was recruiting for TFA. So she was walking around with a poster of her older brother.
That's hilarious.
Embarrassing.
You look older in that poster than you do now.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I got a tie on, and now I just live in sweatshirts. But like, I think that what you did reminded me of that. Like, I had no idea what I was getting into with Teach for America, and it changed me. I think when we talk about leaving our comfort zone, for me, I grew up in a predominantly white community in Springfield, Oregon. And it was a different political climate that I experienced. The America that I experienced is different than what we are seeing today in terms of all the Asian hate. And I'm wearing the Stop Asian Hate shirt that, Dame wore in his game for the Blazers a while back. And so to experience that and know that I was accepted from day one in this country, and then to see what we're seeing now, I think about like what it means to leave our comfort zone and really grow. And for me, I grew up from a sheltered spot to going to a completely, African-American Hispanic community, again, where I knew that I belonged. My sense of belonging, whether growing up as an immigrant in Springfield, Oregon, or in Central Harlem, I'd never had to doubt that, and sports was a big part of it, obviously. Mm-hmm. But to be, like, as I touched on now, a parent, and really feel like, do I belong here? Or do my children belong here in the next generation? Or do people who look like me belong? That's a tough thing to deal with, right? But again, I think only when we're leaving our comfort zones can we find that sense of purpose, find that sense of like, okay, we're going to get through this and we'll get over it. So anyhow, I went on a tangent, but when I first met you guys and you came to visit, I felt that right away. Like, mm-hmm. It wasn't you, it was your Teach for America moment, and what I got so much out of that, the 6 years I spent, I think you're gonna get that, you know, in the coming seasons. Like this Kimchi Express journey is now just scratching the surface. You know,
Yeah.
you're about to level up, and so to get on board and to be a part of that ride, I'm excited. And yeah, I can't wait to get out to Wichita, Kansas in middle of July and do some coaching of different sort, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, you talk about Kimchi Express, and for those that are watching or listening, for those who do not know what we are talking about, so Kimchi Express is a team that I've created back in 2016, and we participate in TBT, the basketball tournament, every summer. So TBT is a single elimination basketball tournament that plays for $1 million, and fields a host of professional players from former NBA to G League to overseas, and some high level talent. And so just long story short, started back in 2016, just a group of friends trying to play in this tournament, to play against the pros. We always kind of sit around and poke fun and banter, and to see how we would do against professional basketball players. And so this was kind of the opportunity to do that. And so we did it. We made it in. At the time, it was a voting system, so we had to rack up as many votes as possible, and we were able to do that with our community around here in the LA Orange County area. And we played, and we got whooped by 40, and that kind of sealed the deal there. But it was a cool experience in terms of playing against the pros, getting free jerseys, things like that. And so we did that for 2 years, and I realized something clicked with me where we were starting to get on, they had contracts with ESPN. We were starting to get on national television. And it dawned on me like, hey, we're putting in all this effort to kind of go out there and, just kind of run around and get whooped by 30, 40 points. It's cool. It's fun, but it's not that fun. There's potential there. And so what we transitioned to as Kimchi Express is to offer a platform for overseas players, for professional players to come and play and compete in this tournament. While doing that, play under this Kimchi Express name, where obviously it's going to raise some eyebrows. And one of our missions is to really spread Korean culture through sports, right? Sports being a universal language across the world. And being able to do that, where we take them out to go eat Korean barbecue or try kimchi or try these different things, it means so much to us to help, spread awareness, help educate. And, like you mentioned, Marshall, with these times, like, I think within specifically the Asian or Korean community, we see incidents where hate is involved, hate crimes, and we kind of look around because we're not so really used to this type of environment where, we're so used to, putting our head down and not saying a word. But I think, talking with my peers, you see these things going on, and you kind of ask yourself like, okay, so what can I do? Well, how can I help this? It seems too big of an issue that I can't even tackle. But the way I think about it, and the way I see Kimchi Express, Kimchi Family as well, is, having the opportunity to educate, to spread awareness, whether, it's one person, a couple people, a group of people. And so I believe that Kimchi Express has that opportunity to do that on this platform in TBT, where we play on ESPN, and having that, again, platform is spreading education, spreading awareness, and understanding like Korean culture is there. And like John Cho mentioned, the speaker that we had before with the Houston Rockets, you usually make fun of things that you don't understand. And so, it's kind of my mission as well to help people understand what an awesome culture and awesome food Korean people have. And so that's really the long story short of Kimchi Express. And, we're embarking on this journey. Tournaments happen in July, but really, really excited of what we're going to do and the opportunities that are going to come about. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, what was it like when you had the first, like, non-Korean player putting on that jersey and seeing like, okay, now there's like, now we're crossing boundaries a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like that moment when you see kimchi, like jars of kimchi being sold in Costco, and you just go, what is happening? What is
Yeah.
going on? But it's normalizing something that's so foreign, right? But what has that been like when you do see somebody eat like kimchi for the first time, or Korean barbecue for the first time, or fiddling with the chopstick, or
Yeah.
that type of thing, when you open yourself up to your culture to somebody else, what was that like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, when people try, different things, try new things,
Yeah,
even, learning how to say hi in Korean, small things
yeah,
like that, it warms our heart, it warms my heart, it warms our heart, right? To know that someone is, wanting to understand your culture. And I think
yeah,
that's really the next steps. Those are the small steps that we need to take as a human race, right? No
yeah,
matter who you are, no matter what color you are. Um,
yeah,
I think that those are things that really warm my heart and kind of drive me too, because I think the way we were raised as well with immigrant parents to
yeah,
understand, the sacrifice and all the things that they've been through. It's also in some ways a thank you for them as well. A thank you to them, to my
mm,
parents, to be like, hey, this is a big part of me as well. Although we are in America, although I've been raised here in the States, being Korean, having that Han, that Chung, like those
mm,
types of um, really symbolic pillars of Korean culture. That's just all, kind of encompassing. And yeah, I mean, it feels awesome. It feels great. And so I actually just got off a call today with one of our prospective players, and I was just kind of sharing the vision with him, and him being someone that's not Korean,
mm,
and I don't know if you've ever had exposure to Koreans or a bunch of Koreans, but just being able to talk him through, the short story and the reason why we're named Kimchi Express, I think is so awesome in my eyes.
yeah. I mean, yeah, when you're out recruiting these players, and people can wrap their head around, okay, there's, what is it, Carmen's Army, is that right? Did I
Carmen's
say that right?
crew,
Or
Bayham's army.
Carmen's
Yep.
crew, that
Mm-hmm.
Carmen's Army, Bayham's Army.
Yep.
So these are all like alumni based teams, right? So you got the team from Marquette, you got the team from Ohio State and
Yeah.
Syracuse and all these like blue bloods, and then you got, major high school, not high school, college programs.
Mm-hmm.
So like they could be like, you're trying to get a player who might be getting pulled back to their alumni base, but you're like, no, come rock with us. Like how do you do that? How do you sell them on that, really?
No, that happens pretty often.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you don't know the TBT environment, a lot of it is based off of like alumni teams, and obviously alumni
mm-hmm.
bases have a lot of the control, right? You already have a built-in
Yeah,
fan base. For us,
yeah,
it's all homegrown.
yeah,
And so you ask the question, if a player is kind of pulled two separate ways from us or their alumni team, I think it's pretty simple.
yeah,
We
yeah,
have a huge differentiator in terms of what we can offer. I think content is king, especially in this day and age. Everyone kind of really understands that. And, what we do is, backed by, it's not just myself. We have an awesome team in terms of what we built and understanding the vision and all of that. And so we've got a content team that's really going to push out some awesome, awesome things. And um, I think it's important for players to also realize like how much they can leverage their brand as well. You have, name, image, likeness with the college programs. And when you're in college, you've got that, clout, you've got that fame. But once you go pro, it's kind of hard to generate that and leverage off of that momentum. And so,
mm,
what we can kind of offer is a lot of content pieces, a lot of things that'll
mm,
get your name out there more. We'll clip up highlight tapes, small things like that they don't really have the luxury of having. And
yeah,
yeah, those are kind of the biggest things. And just our personalities and our team, like I think
yeah,
that really speaks for itself. So yeah.
yeah. No, that again, that's where I think it's so exciting, because I was listening to a Jay Billis podcast with I think Slapping Glass,
Mm.
guys, shout out Slapping Glass. But they were asking like, hey, who'd you, like, they have the segment where like, who would you bench, who would you sub, who would you,
Yeah.
play, right? And and it was the question about like, hey, would you go to college, would you go to G League, would you go overseas? And Jay Billis made this comment like, right now, like G League is happening, the G League Ignite, and getting these high school kids straight to G League once and then go into the league. That's going to be a popular thing,
Mm-hmm.
moving down. But still, like what he was arguing is that like you go to an institution, even if you play a year, like KD only played at UT for a year, but that's
Yeah.
like his home, right? Or Melo played a circuit. But like and I thought that was a strong argument, but having coached at University of Portland for a couple of years, when you do have other these mid-major or low-major programs where there's constant turnover with the coaches and those things, a lot of these college players, they don't have homes to go back to, or they may be somebody who's from the Midwest, played in the West Coast, somebody from the West Coast who played in the East Coast. It's not necessarily that's a place that they can go home to. And again, what you're touching on with the virtual and content and where the world is going, for some of these players to make Kimchi Express a home, a summer home, but then wherever they go overseas, or a lot of them, they're now not just tapping into us, but as we're growing our network, we're opening up our world, or another level of networking and connection that
Right.
may even lead to it. Like, that's how, I guess, I'm a coach. That's how I think, because I think about that for my high school guys. You talk about some of these words, and it's the little things, right? And I wear my heart on my sleeve, but I'm learning more to wear my culture and my heritage on my sleeve, right? And I'm finding my voice to do that with these young 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds.
Mhm.
And so I teach them the terms hanbe and hube. So it's, a lot of times I will say, hey, you're a Lake Oswego class of such and such. Kevin Love was the Lake Oswego class of 2006, right? And I got the class of 2021 graduating. Well, Kevin Love, is a sunbed to anybody else who came through after him,
Mhm.
right? And Kevin has all these hubes, the players that came after him that he can look out for. And I think that's where it'd be really neat to see that, once you've done this for 5-10 years, to be able to look back and say, like, look at your first class and say, you guys really helped us get to that next level.
Yeah.
You're like in the Kimchi Express Hall of Fame, like, I think a sense of having home. Again, we keep talking about that word of belonging, and to be able to offer that up to somebody who comes from a different cultural heritage or different upbringing. I think that's so important, and so that's what sets us apart. And it's I do tend to think we stay in our comfort zones often. It's easy to stay with somebody who knows your culture, but
Mhm.
again, what an awesome thing to be able to do that through basketball and be a bridge.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm actually curious. I want to flip it over to you. I know this is kind of actually maybe a year since I've reached out to you. Curious, when we reached out, what were your thoughts when you saw, I don't know, you probably went through that Instagram. What were your thoughts in terms of what this whole thing was all about? Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I thought, what a bunch of gangpes, like what a bunch of young bucks. What are these guys doing? Like, what are they about? I think what you did is so unique that it just captures the attention first, and then if you have any sense of imagination, you go, all right, that's cool. So now where are they going next? I mean, that was just my natural thing, next thing to ponder.
Yeah.
And again, we connected during a really goofy time in our global history here.
Oh,
You
for
know,
sure. Yeah.
it's been really tough. It's been a tough time, and so you know, for me, I think a lot of this has been trying to give back to the next generation. You know, I've I've intentionally taken this path, and I think I could have stayed in the college game and grind it out, but I prioritized family. But in the meantime, I collected a lot of relationships that I hope, and I hope, but I think more than that, I deeply believe that I have a lot of authentic relationships because I've tried to be a good friend, to those who come across my path. And what that's allowed also for me to do is make connections, not for myself, but connect the next generation of coaches who are looking for help.
Yeah.
I do have I try to make myself an open book because I think that's what happens when you're an immigrant, child, and your parents are busy working, and you're the oldest of three, and you have to figure things out. And so I've constantly been in search of mentors and older coaches who would show me the way. And it's kind of like you asking players to come on Kimchi Express. You're gonna get a lot of no's before you get the yeses.
Oh,
But when you do get
100%.
the yeses, when you get that player who's bought in, but when you catch a coach, who sees your potential and looks out for you and opens doors for you, um, you only the only thing you can do is turn around and pay that back. So
Mm.
I've had a lot of coaches do that for me, and hopefully I'm doing the same thing. But like I feel like that's how this started, right? It was like, hey, I have all these connections, I have all these people that I know that I can personally invite, and because I'm curious about their story, but I wanted to do it to really help, for starting with you,
Yeah.
right? Sharing my network of friends and people in the basketball world, um, but also virtually do that for many others, of your generation. Like I'm trying to make myself sound so old or something, but like, I'll be 45 next month, so
Hey.
trying to be like you said with the poster, trying to be Benjamin Button here, but
Yeah, I mean I think that's one big thing that stuck out to me about you is just building connections. I think uh like we talked about before, also seizing opportunity, building connections. I think um that yeah, that's really, yeah, again, that's such a big thing that came out in meeting you and just talking with you, because when we first reached out, you were just kind of like, what about this guy? Have you reached out to this guy? Things like that, and
I
just
did.
offering.
I don't honestly. I don't even remember our first conversation. I do remember when you guys came up and visited our gym. We had just had some workouts, and I was
Yeah.
all sorts of fired up, you know. And so I probably went from like telling my like sophomore guard to do something right, and then turn around and was like, I don't know, a little
Yeah.
just like alpha dog like coach mode with you guys,
Yeah.
and probably
No,
startled you guys.
we vividly remember that for sure. But I'd say, like, a question for you, right,
Yeah.
is building connections. I want to stay kind of on there really, and
Okay.
for for those that are listening that are building their careers, and maybe even mid-career. I think for myself too, I've kind of gone away with that, or gone away from that. I think in college I was really ambitious with trying to reach out and just trying to pick people's brains and understand. But as I kind of went along with my career, I feel like I've lost that touch a little bit, and so
Mm.
I want to get back into that. So I guess for anyone that's out there, whether in college, in their career, whether late career, it really doesn't matter. I think understanding how to build connections
Mm-hmm.
and the way you go about that in your process and the way you think about it. And I don't know, are there certain questions? Are there certain ways that you go about it? Is it just come natural? Like how do you, I don't know,
Yeah.
facilitate that?
I mean, I just think you can't have any agendas going into it.
For sure.
I think that's the biggest thing for me. Like I can sniff that out if somebody's got an agenda or whatever. But if they're naturally curious, if they have a question that needs to be answered, and I don't know if I have the answer, but it's the same question I sought out 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's a list of things that I discovered. I thought Ted Kim did a really good job of explaining that in our as a guest. By the way, I wrote down all the names just to make sure. Okay, it was the seventh, but I'm gonna make sure I
Nice.
circle back to all the things I learned from those guys. But Ted had this thing called reference,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not like, don't try to be me. Like Ted was this guy who again came from Korea. He kind of did the reverse trip, came back, and so all he can do is share his story, and that's what he did in the interview. And then you could say, well, here it is. Use it or don't use it, but this is a reference. And there are things that you can pull from it and not, right? And I think that's the biggest advice that we give for young coaches. Be yourself. I heard that the first time, and I heard it from many different people. But when I'm hearing it from some guy who's an NBA assistant coach tells me, "Hey, Marshall, just be yourself," and I'm just starting out, like, okay, that's easy for you to say, but these guys, I'm a short, like Korean American guy. Like I never played college basketball. How are they gonna? If
Yeah.
I'm being myself and they disrespect me, what do I do then?
Yeah.
Right? But those are the best lessons because what they were saying was just be authentic. And if the players can sniff the fake people out. If you're faking your knowledge, if you're faking your a sense of who you are, like you're not gonna last very long. And
Yeah.
so I try to do that with every conversation, whether it's new or old. That when I come into it, and I think like-minded people just attract each other.
For sure.
So So now it's like if somebody who's genuine and authentic comes, I have a list of people that I know are gonna be just as authentic or genuine to that person.
Yeah.
You know, it's just pulling people into your like a like a there's a Han and a Jung and a
Hmm.
you know all of
Yeah.
that you know that connection that it's hard to um translate, but it's
Hmm.
you just know that and that Chung is like you know the Korean word. It's like you feel like you've known that person forever.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's ultimately what we're trying to build here as well. Just build connections and make that network a little bit smaller for people to tap into and do it in a genuine manner. Um, yeah, I mean, we're 7 episodes in. We've got an outlook of hopefully many, many more.
Yeah. Well, when I started goofing off, like I was like 6, you know, 7. I was like, man, what if like we run out of like we gotten 10 and that's all we can find? Um, I don't want to stick my foot up or in the air or whatever, but you know, there you texted the other day like who should we all have on next? I just like rattled off like 7 names, right?
Yeah,
Off the top of my head. Uh, Milton Lee. Milton, if you're listening, you're a legend. You're an OG. Man, I was so intimidated the first time meeting Milton. He was in that New York Times article. He's got
yeah,
an incredible
I
story.
saw that.
He
Yeah,
could have stories for days. I think you know, initially Eugene Park, who's with the NBA Academy. So if I'm just going down the people who were mentioned in that New York Times article, Eugene Park, who is doing an amazing job with NBA Academy, doesn't like this kind of thing. So I'm gonna have to drag him onto the interview at some point, you know. But he's been
yeah,
mentoring Hyun Jung Lee, who's gonna be just a stud player, you know, at Davidson. You know, we're talking Seth Berkman, who actually wrote the piece, who I had a chance to meet through the Council of Korean Americans. Just so super like cerebral, thoughtful, just you know, the journalist. Like he asks right questions.
yeah,
I mean, there's just a list of people that you know that I can't wait to have and hear their story, you know, and flip the script. Like it, in particular with Seth, you know, just to circle back to that New York Times article, he asked the one question he asked I got really stuck on was how the idea of imposter syndrome kept on coming up with the people that he was interviewing, and he asked me if I had experienced it, and I know I have, but like that question really stumped me,
mm,
you know. Um, and so, you know, I'd love for a chance to flip the script on him and ask him like, you know, how he's dealt with it or, you know, that type of thing. But I think the sky's the limit. You know, I do think venturing outside of our Korean American, you know, little bubble, I think there's so many fascinating people just that we can invite and learn from. And, you know, I was joking with you, like, you know, I have a Luca Desta who's, you know, who's a scout for the Lakers, a good friend of mine. Like, and he's from Africa, right? So if I were to invite him and the question would be like, what is your, you know, what is your version of kimchi where you come
yeah,
from? I
yeah,
think just being able to ask that question, you know, would be amazing. You
yeah,
know, Shenton Wei, who is a Chinese American, Chinese Australian, Chinese Aussie scout for the Utah Jazz. Um, you know, he and John and I were on the group text together, and you know, we have a blast with it. Or at least Shenton and I do. I don't know about John. John kind of puts up with us. But you know, if I were to ask Shenton, like, hey, like you're Chinese Australian, what was that like? How does that
yeah,
compare to being a Korean American? You know, like, and so just trying to again, like I was telling you earlier, just being curious about like, okay, where's the common point, and at what point did you feel like you belong? You know, I think when you see those connect those dots, I think it makes you feel less alone and less like an imposter.
yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, you've rattled off so many amazing people and
Yeah.
with like incredible journeys and incredible stories.
Yeah.
One
It's like a
person that we're
teaser. Yeah. Yeah.
I think one person that we're all waiting on is Marshall Cho.
Wait,
Um,
I'm on right now, bro. What are you
this
talking about?
this is not the official. This is not the official.
Oh no,
No,
no. It's
we're
like
gonna do an official one.
no, I'm so tired of my own voice. I'm not like,
No,
yeah,
I
no.
you know you have an incredible journey as well as you know all the other people that you named off, and so really excited about the outlook with Kimchi Family for the rest of 2021.
Yeah.
Again, shout out to the New York Times article to boost our subscriber account on YouTube to 101. Let's
101,
go,
baby. First
let's
100 is the
go.
hardest to get. Now we
Yeah,
just got
and
to get to, yeah,
yeah, we
150.
150
Yeah.
or 110, 110 or
110,
102.
110. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So
so yeah, appreciate everyone for always supporting. I will give a PSA out if you've made it this far and you're listening already.
God
If
bless. Yeah.
God bless you, first of all. Secondly, if you have any experience in creating content or
Oh,
know anyone creating content, I would love some help with Kimchi Family. I think for myself, I have very amateur knowledge of Photoshop. You know, you can probably tell with all the Instagram posts how, you know, it's kind of mismanaged, all of that misplaced, missized, all of that stuff. I just need some help. So if anyone has any contacts or connects or would love to, you know, kind of build something that that's pretty awesome in my eyes and Marshall's eyes, please feel free to reach out, DM us. Yeah, I think that'd be an amazing help. So um, I think that's kind of wraps it up for this episode a little bit. This is just kind of a little random update, check in. You know, we'll be back on with some more episodes with, you know, a lot of the amazing guys that Marshall's just rattled off. So we've got to get to prospecting. So yeah, Marshall, what do you think?
no, I think that's good. Yeah, yeah, just excited about the coming months, man. And you got some announcements to make with more players and coaches and all that, right?
Oh
You're
yeah,
saving
yeah.
that until later. That's just like a Christmas present thing. You're
Oh
not
yeah,
gonna.
yeah. Saving that for a couple of weeks. So
Ooh,
if
ooh, I
if
like it.
you are not following Kimchi Express right now, at the Kimchi Express on Instagram, at just Kimchi Express on Twitter, please follow us. Please support. Check in on our journey. It's going to be crazy. The next 2 months or so, 2 to 3 months, it's going to be wild. So we're going to be making some noise, and yeah, I just can't wait for it. So I think that's it for this episode. We'll wrap it up here. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and 101 subscribers, baby. We're on the up and up. So see you guys.
Let's go. Let's go. Thank you.